Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Moving Home with Charlie. I'm Charlie and I try and remain cheerful as much as I can in my videos and a little bit entertaining. But the topic of this video is, unfortunately, there's really nothing funny or entertaining about it. It's incredibly scary. In this video I'm going to be explaining what negative equity is and how you can avoid it and why you must avoid it. Before I get into it, if you are looking to sell or buy a house, check out bestagent.co.uk. It's my website. It's a website designed to help avoid bad estate agents, especially if you're a seller. But straight into this now. This is especially aimed at first-time buyers, okay? Anyone thinking of buying, we're coming into the autumn 2022. Property prices are at a very high price spike. They're at all-time highs. And if you're thinking of buying a home now, you need to understand what negative equity is, what the risks are of ending up there, and how to avoid them before you go ahead and buy your home. I implore you to listen carefully to this because it is a life changer in a bad way if you get it wrong. Now, I've got links below in the description to all of the articles I'm choosing here, and there's one link there from a website called Twindig, which has a great explanation of exactly what negative equity is. But in a nutshell, it's when you buy a house at a price, let's say £250,000, and you've got a 90 or 95% mortgage, so £225,000 mortgage, let's say, and then the price of your house falls after you've bought it to below the amount you borrowed to buy it. That means that your house is worth less than you borrowed to buy it. That's called negative equity, and it's a horrible trap that can affect the rest of your life. If you've never heard of it before, that's not surprising because it hasn't really existed. There was a little bit of negative equity, it didn't last for very long, in the 2007, 2008, 2009 price downturn. But it didn't hit as hard as the negative equity of the early 1990s. Now, I'm going to read you quotes from three things. Number one is a Guardian article from 2003 when they were looking back on negative equity from the early 90s. Has negative equity ever happened before? At the end of the 1980s, there was a similarly strong house price boom. Okay, look at the parallels. The government was about to scrap dual tax relief for mortgage interest, whatever, but it meant that it allowed couples to claim tax back. And so there was a scramble to buy homes before the tax break ended. Does that sound familiar? Stamp duty holiday, COVID. And prices were pushed up artificially high because of the scramble. In addition, mortgages became more and more expensive as interest rates rose and more than doubled. Does that sound familiar? All three of those things have happened, okay? When the property crash began, and by the way, no one back then said there'd be a property crash, especially estate agents, an estimated 1.8 million homeowners suffered negative equity. The London area and the southeast were worst hit, and prices there fell by 27%. Prices fell by 27%. Please think what that would mean for you. If you bought a house now at the top of the market and prices fell 27%. Around the country, prices dropped by 13% over the 4 years to 1993. The second thing, a quote from the Bank of England PDF, which I've linked to in the description below. Many of those affected by negative equity had been first-time buyers only a few years earlier, when house prices had been high and had a negative net financial wealth when house prices fell. You may have already just bought your home during the pandemic, okay? And this means you are potentially exposed. And unfortunately, there may not be much you can do about that. I also then got a message on my Moving Home with Charlie Twitter channel. Please follow me there, moving_Charlie on Twitter. I got a private message from someone who said, I've just watched your video from Saturday. I'll link to that video here, That was the 8 reasons why the property market's going to collapse. I've just watched your video from Saturday with interest. I bought my first house in 2007. I have just managed to sell it. That's 15 years. Okay, I've just managed to sell it after renting it out for years and being in negative equity. If you're a first-time buyer and you're in a position to buy it and you're ready to buy it and you're excited about buying it, why wouldn't you be excited about buying your first home? Just first of all, stop and think about just how much time, effort, energy, and sacrifice you have made to get yourself into the position where you're ready to buy a house, right? You've got the deposit somehow, and you've got the salary you need to get a mortgage, perhaps if you've got a mortgage in principle, and you feel ready to buy. And of course, you want to buy, because who doesn't want to buy their first home, especially when you've worked this hard and long for it? Now imagine all that value that you've created by saving up all over the years disappearing like a fart in the wind. Okay? That is what happens with negative equity. Now, and I really mean it. I mean, if your house ends up being worth less than the mortgage you took out to buy it, all of the deposit you saved up has gone while house prices remain low. 2 things then happen if you're in that scenario. Number 1, you manage to maintain your mortgage payments and you sit tight and you ride it out and you wait until house prices come back up again. Okay? But no one ever knows how long it's going to take. In this person's case on Twitter, 15 years it took for her to sell. She said she made 40k on it when she sold it. Well, that's a pretty feeble return after 15 years, okay? It would have been a lot higher if she hadn't gone into negative equity. But the worst scenario, and the life-changing one, is when you then lose your house because you can't afford to keep up the repayment on it. The house is repossessed by the mortgage lender. You have no home. You've got no equity, no savings, no deposit, nothing else left. In fact, you will be without a home and you will still owe the bank the shortfall on the mortgage, which might take you years and years and years again to pay off. So I hope I'm being really clear about just how horrible a threat negative equity can be at all, even if you don't lose your house, but especially if you end up losing your house. Now, why might I lose my house, Charlie, if I bought it? It doesn't pay my mortgage. Hopefully you won't. But we are about to enter what could be the worst recession since the 1930s. Okay? And in recessions, companies go under, people lose their jobs. Now, I'm not making any predictions about how good or bad the jobs market is going to be. What I'm saying is these are all looking like things that are not impossible to happen. Now, a lot of people are going to say, Charlie, why are you being so negative? Come on, it's going to be okay. Look, there's lots of demand for property. There's a shortage of supply of houses. And yes, there is demand today. And yes, today there is still a relative shortage of houses. But it's changing. And the property market changes slowly. I'm going to wrap up the video with this metaphor. I want you to imagine that you are on a beach on the side of a large ocean. And the sun is out and the sea is calm and everything's wonderful and everything's beautiful. And then someone comes along and says, guys, there's been a tsunami 3,000 miles away, an earthquake, 3,000 miles away, and there might be a tsunami on this beach. Now, when that happens, sometimes the tsunamis hit the beaches, sometimes they don't, and they take a while to arrive. And what this video is saying, this is the tsunami warning, okay? It may not happen, but the earthquake has happened. Go and see my video about the 8 things that are changing about the property market, which is why, at the moment, if nothing changes, it's almost, in my opinion, a mathematical certainty that house prices are going to fall. I might be wrong. I hope and pray that I am wrong, okay? But I've been working in this industry for 25 years. I bought my first property even longer ago than that. I remember the early 90s, and I'm warning you that if the tsunami hits, it is ugly. And what you don't want to do is to go out and buy at the very top of the market, okay? Do not go out and bid over asking price on any property right now, even if other people are. Let them, okay? If those people haven't watched this video or haven't seen haven't heard a negative equity warning, what can we do about that? I mean, please share this video with anyone that you know who is thinking about buying. Now, I'd love to be able to offer more comfort to people who have just bought a first-time buyer and are now thinking, well, shit, what's going to happen? I'd be making sure that I had some savings in the bank. I'd be making sure that I could make my mortgage repayments. I'd be making sure that if I did end up in negative equity, I at least don't lose my house. All right? That's what I'd be doing now. I would be tightening my belt. I'd be reining in my spending, and I would be wanting to weather the storm. Now, if the storm doesn't happen and you've done that, well, whoopee-doo, you've got savings. You're going to have all that money saved up, and your house price is going to be fine, and the negative equity threat may pass without occurrence, right? Without anything happening. And let's pray that that happens. But if it doesn't, and if the market does go into negative equity, and people do lose their jobs, it's going to be a bloodbath, like it was in the 90s, where there were just repossessions left, right, and centre. And one estate agent told me 2 days ago that 2/3 of all the properties they were listing were repossessions. So guys, I'm sorry. There's nothing cheery about this video. There's nothing funny to say about it. I can't be upbeat about it, other than to say, let's pray it doesn't happen. But for all the reasons I've outlined in my other videos, the risks of negative equity happening in the next 2 or 3 years are very high. It doesn't mean it will happen, but the risks of it happening are high. You need to be aware of it. And if you're thinking to yourself, okay, Charlie, but we found a house that's currently within our budget that we could afford to buy, what are you saying? Do buy, don't buy? Well, I'm saying, and I'll do another video to explain this in more detail, go ahead and buy your home, because owning a home is important, and being in a home and having a home to live in is really important, provided you are confident that you can keep up the repayments on that home, even if the property market does fall and you're taking a long-term view. I'm about to do another video today on exactly how to make sure you don't overpay, all right? And my parting message to you on this video is, if you are a first-time buyer looking to buy now and you want to buy now, just make certain you don't overpay. If you think there's not enough property in the market and you've got no choice, I would urge you to wait a month or two, because I think a lot more property is going to come onto the market and you're going to have more choice. But yes, let me wrap it up with this. If you're a first-time buyer who wants to buy soon, I would urge you to wait if you can. If you don't want to wait and you want to proceed now, proceed with ultra caution and don't overpay. Other than that, I hope you managed to find some fun in your day. Good luck with your move if you are moving. And I will see you on my next video. Thank you guys. Sorry it wasn't a cheerier one. Bye-bye.